Now for our story.
Randy! Oh, Randy!
Hi, Peggy.
Where are you?
Over here.
Oh.
Over.
Okay. Hi, Randy.
Well, say, what's all the excitement?
Nothing.
Nothing. God, I thought the house was on fire or something.
Whatever made you think that?
Oh, well, you came tearing out here. You act as if the hound of the Baskervilles was at your heels.
Maybe it was just the hounds of spring. Oh, I don't know. All of a sudden, I felt like talking to you, that's all.
Oh, I'll be darned. Girls.
Peggy Douglas smiled at her cousin brightly as she plumped herself down on the wheelbarrow which stood at the end of the plot of ground in which Randy was working, carefully scooping out a shallow trench in the smooth dirt he prepared for a kitchen garden. She watched him in silence for a while before she said,
Where did everybody go? I thought Lily was out here a while ago.
She was.
Well, where'd she go? I was upstairs, and when I came down, nobody was around.
Oh, well, Aunt Mary took them out for a drive.
Oh.
Dell wanted some of that sausage old Mrs. Stanton makes, so they decided to drive over and get some. Lily's never seen much of this country around here, so she went for the ride.
Oh. I guess Lily's never seen much of any kind of country, as far as that goes.
Yeah, that's what I gather. You stayed with her quite a while you were in Chicago, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
How'd it work out?
Work out? How do you mean, Randy?
Well, did you get along okay?
Why, yes.
I don't imagine she'd be exactly a calming influence as a roommate.
Lily surprises you. She's not quite the way you expect when you get to know her well.
Oh? How come?
I mean, on the surface, Lily's so glib. You know, appears to be awfully sure of herself and all that.
Yeah? Go on.
But when you get to know her, you find out she's not like that, really.
No?
Well, that is, she is sure of herself, all right. She knows how to get along and take care of herself. Well, after all, she's been on her own since she was just a youngster. But even so...
You seem to be having a hard time saying what you mean.
I know I am. I think the reason is I've always accepted Lily according to what I know of her. I never stopped to think how she looked to other people.
Well, maybe I can help you out, Peg. You're trying to say that Lily seems to be rather hard-boiled, even cold, but that really she's a warm, sensitive person. Is that it?
Yes, Randy, that's it. I don't know why it was so hard for me to explain. Maybe I'm getting to be sort of dumb in my old age.
Oh, don't worry about it. You're okay. Was Lily working for Dell when you first knew her?
No, she was working at a much smaller place. A little on the cheap side, I guess. Lily's told me something about the work she did there. I think it's wonderful that she's working for Dell now.
Mm-hmm. Well, what kind of an act does she do at Dell's?
Oh, sort of a specialty thing. She does a Spanish dance, I think. At least she used to. And then she sings a little.
How does she go over? Does the crowd like her?
Oh, they're crazy about her. Lily has a lot of personality, you know. Besides, she's awfully good looking. Or, maybe you don't think so?
Oh, sure. I think she's very attractive.
Oh. Well, you never know. I've noticed that women and men hardly ever agree about who's pretty and who isn't. I think Lily's glamorous.
Glamorous?
Yes, what's the matter?
Well, I don't think I'd use quite that word to describe her.
Well, how would you describe Lily then, Randy?
How would I describe her?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. That bears a little thinking about.
Well, while you're thinking, why don't you come over and sit here by me? You're due for a rest anyway.
Okay. Oh, feels good to relax for a minute. I see now. Where were we?
You were going to give me your impression of Lily.
Oh, yeah. Well, Peggy, I'd say she's the kind of a girl you could take on a camping trip who wouldn't kick sand in the fire.
Oh, Randy, you're crazy. What difference...
No, that's not quite accurate. I guess I should say you wouldn't mind if she did. No, she's the kind of girl who'd know when to be silent But if you wanted to talk, she'd have something to say. Naturally, she'd be good in the kitchen. But if you wanted to get dressed up and go out somewhere, you'd be darn proud to have her arm through yours. And everybody turned to look at her, too.
Why, Randy.
And in an emergency, she wouldn't lose her head. She'd be calm. She'd know what you wanted without asking thousands of questions. And she'd probably work right along with you.
Go on, Randy.
Well, she'd like simple, real things. The way the fields look in the morning when the sun's coming up. The way the dew sparkles. And going fishing in the smell of wood smoke. She'd be a good driver. Even be able to change a tire in a pinch. She'd be interested in people. Like to help them if she could. Generous. Honest. And very smart.
Are you still talking about Lily?
Oh, well, sure. Wasn't that the idea?
Yes.
And what's the matter?
Nothing.
Has Lily ever been married?
No.
Gee, I wonder why.
Well, maybe she never found a man she wanted to marry.
Yeah, that's usually the reason, I admit. But still, a girl as good-looking as she is appealing. It's odd.
Well, I'm sure it isn't that she lacked for opportunity.
Oh, no, I suppose not.
In fact, I know very well that's not the reason. Lily's always been very popular with men.
She has?
Naturally. As you just said, she's just the kind of girl who attracts men. I won't say I ever thought of her as the kind of girl you just described. I mean, I never would have thought of her as being quite that wonderful. But she's awfully sweet just the same.
Did I make her sound wonderful?
You did to me.
Maybe she is. You were saying about why she never married.
Oh, yes. Well, I don't know. Lily's had plenty of experience, I guess. After all, she didn't have a very sheltered life.
No, I imagine not.
So naturally, I guess she learned her way around, so far as men are concerned. There used to be lots of men phoning her. They always wanted to stay after the show and talk to her, too. Sometimes she wouldn't get home until awfully late. But Lily wouldn't...
Peggy Douglas broke off in the middle of a sentence, for she had noticed a very odd expression on her cousin's face. He wasn't listening to her anymore. Instead, he was thinking...
It's only natural that a girl like Lily would have been around quite a lot. She's not like Peggy, sheltered and protected when she was a kid. Men would be bound to go for her. She's got everything it takes to interest him. After all, she may be just a few years older than Peggy is, but... Well, the kind of life she's had would make her grow up a lot faster. I don't know why I'm so concerned about it anyway. It's none of my darn business what she's done. Never even met her until yesterday. I know what the score is. I've been around plenty myself these last 3 or 4 years. What do I care what Lily Devon's done? Of course, I do wish she'd had a different sort of life. Hate to think of her getting kicked around, knowing the kind of guy she must have known. Oh, yet it has nothing to do with me. Nothing at all.
Although Randy Lane honestly believed that what Lily Devon had or had not done in her life was none of his concern, he had no idea how his unconscious feeling toward her, his feeling of possessiveness, the beginnings of a deep tenderness, had already begun to assert themselves. But Peggy, his young cousin, had noticed that his interest in her friend from Chicago was far more than a casual one. Now for our story. The bells dismissing church were just dying in the distance on a peaceful, quiet Sunday morning in Wakefield. Aunt Mary and her son, Randy Lane, on their way from church in the little pickup truck, have just stopped in front of the Brown Palace Hotel, where Aunt Mary is to see her old friend from Chicago, Dell Shipley.
All right, Randy, don't worry about calling for me. I'm sure Dell won't mind driving me out to the farm later. Oh, and tell Peggy to look at the roast when she and Jane get back from church.
Randy's cheerful smile and wave of his arm assured Aunt Mary that he would take care of everything. And Aunt Mary paused to gaze after him affectionately as he drove away. Then she entered the hotel and went directly to the room which Dell is sharing with Lily Devon.
Come in.
Good morning, Dell. Morning, Lily.
Oh, Aunt Mary, good morning.
Mary. Pardon me, hon. I thought it was the waiter for our breakfast tray.
Oh, it's all right, Dell. Just keep your seat.
Isn't this a disgrace, Aunt Mary, having breakfast at this hour?
Not at all. You're on vacation. You should be taking it easy.
How about a cup of coffee and a roll, Mary?
Well, thank you, Dell, but I don't want to spoil my dinner. We eat about 2:30 on Sundays, you know.
Oh? Well, then I won't tempt you. Lily, why don't you put the tray on the dresser, out of our way?
Sure.
Swell. Now, we can spread out a little. That chair comfortable for you, Mary?
Oh, yes, this is just fine. This is a very pleasant room.
Yeah. I love that view of the park in front of the courthouse.
Well, listen to our little nature lover.
Oh, now, never you mind, Lily. I was coming here to Wakefield and admiring the scenery when you were still in three-cornered pants. Isn't that so, Mary? Well, it certainly is.
Okay, my mistake.
Dell, I don't want you to think I'm a pest, but have you thought any more about the plan we discussed? I'm so anxious to get things started.
Sure, Mary. I understand.
You may not realize quite how important it is, but when I think of all the young people in this community just sort of wandering around on Saturday nights, no place to go but those roadhouses...
It's not so good, I see that. They should have a place of their own, where they'll get the right kind of entertainment and stuff.
Yes. Did you, talk to Mr. Hoskins? Get him to show you the banquet room downstairs?
Yeah. And you were right. It's just the place for a setup like you have in mind. A good big room, and, well, it could be fixed up real attractive with very little expense.
Oh, yes, that's what I thought. I'm so glad you agreed, Dell.
And it's possible that the hotel patrons would help support a place like that. A supper room kind of deal. You haven't anything like that in town, have you?
No, not a single one. Yes, Dell, that is an idea.
A person could get a small musical combination down from the city on Friday or Saturday nights. And then during the week, you could have some kind of local entertainment. You know the kind I mean. There are always talented kids in a town like this.
Well, yes, that sounds good.
A place like that might turn out to be quite a paying proposition. For the right person.
The right person, Dell?
Mary, I know what you want me to say. That I'll do it, but I'm afraid I can't help you out.
I see.
Dell, isn't there some way you could work it out?
Well, Lily, I didn't know you were sold on the idea.
Well, it seemed like such a good idea, what I heard of it. And I knew Aunt Mary was so anxious.
Well, I confess I'm disappointed, but I know Dell must have her reasons.
Yeah, I have. And he's a very obstinate reason. Even more so than I thought.
You mean Lefty?
Yeah.
Well, it's too bad, but I wouldn't want you to make yourself unhappy just to do something I wanted. And if being here in Wakefield, seeing Lefty would be too painful... Oh, it is a pity, though.
Yeah. It's a darn shame. You know, I'd do anything in the world to help you out, Mary. And this scheme may have a lot of possibilities. I've thought about it a lot since you first mentioned it to me the other day. But you see, I talked to Lefty last night.
You did?
Yeah. I couldn't sleep for thinking about it, so I got dressed and drove out there. I guess Lily must have figured out where I was going, even though she pretended to be asleep.
I did have an idea, but it wasn't any of my business.
Well, anyway, Lefty and I had quite a session. And he made his attitude very plain. He doesn't want me around here, Mary.
He told you so? Right out?
Yeah.
I'd like to choke that old goat.
Now, Lily.
Well, I would.
So, Mary, it looks like that's that. Of course, you might be able to get the townspeople together. Get them to start their own nightclub or supper club.
Yes, but, Dell, the main thing I'm interested in is the youngsters, the young people. That way, they wouldn't come into the picture at all.
No, I guess they wouldn't.
And they're the ones I'm concerned about. I was just wondering, though, suppose we could get something started. Some kind of paying proposition for weeknights and Saturday nights. Maybe we could make an arrangement to turn the place over to the young people, just to themselves, on Fridays. That's when they like to go out best anyway.
No, it's a possibility. Of course, the main thing is to find someone to run it for you.
Yes. Well, we'll see. In the meantime, I better be getting home.
Okay. I'll get dressed and drive you out.
Oh, that would be nice, Dell. Oh, do you know where David Bowman lives?
Oh, I think I do. Why?
Well, I promised David I'd stop in for just a minute this afternoon.
Well, that's easy. Why don't you go over there now, while I get dressed? I can pick you up in half an hour or so.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. Sure you remember the house?
Oh, sure. It's a big white house with a lawn in front and a picket fence over by the river.
Yes, that's the one. At the end of the street. You can't miss it.
Oh, I'll find it. Well, don't hurry yourself. We'll have plenty of time.
Well, then, I'll see you later. Of course, you're coming too, aren't you, Lily?
Oh, I don't believe I can, Aunt Mary. I have to wash out some stockings and things.
Oh, that's too bad. Peggy will be disappointed.
Tell her I'll see her later.
Well, all right then. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mary. Darn it. I feel like an awful heel. If there's anything I hate, it's to disappoint Mary Lane.
Yeah. It isn't as if she wanted things for herself. It's always other people she's worrying about.
Sure. But I can't help it this time. As I said, with Lefty feeling the way he does.
Dell, I have an idea. I don't know whether you'll approve, but maybe you'll think I've got a lot of nerve. But you know what Aunt Mary suggested about having the place for grown-ups during the week and Saturdays and turning it over to the kids on Friday night?
Yeah?
And you just said yourself that, well, on a basis like that, the place might pay. If you brought in professional musicians just on weekends.
Yeah, it probably would work out.
And during the week, you could just have some incidental entertainment. Like a little singing and stuff.
Yeah, well, what about it?
Well, Dell, I was wondering well, since you can't do it yourself, if maybe you'd let me take over the job of managing the place. We might make a nice thing out of it financially. Aunt Mary'd be happy because the kids would have a decent place to go.
But, Lily, you wouldn't want to live down here, would you? You'd have to, you know.
Yeah, I know.
You mean you'd like to live here in Wakefield?
Yes, Dell, I think I would like to.
Well, I'll be darned.
When Dell Shipley arrived in Wakefield to visit Aunt Mary, she was thinking most of Lefty Larkin, hoping she could persuade him to forgive her for the injustice he feels she did to Peggy Douglas, his daughter, and Aunt Mary's niece, in Chicago. But Lefty had refused, and Dell was so absorbed in her own problem, she hadn't noticed the change in Lily. A very subtle change, because I doubt if even Lily herself knows that the real reason she is willing to stay in Wakefield is because of her interest in Randy Lane, Aunt Mary's son. Now for our story. It was a pleasant Sunday afternoon. After church, Aunt Mary had stopped in at David Bowman's, where she was to be met later by Dell Shipley and driven back to the farm. At David's, Aunt Mary had found Bill Meade. After they all chatted a while, she said goodbye to David, and she and Bill, who was leaving too, had strolled out through the garden. Now they have paused by the gate.
Mr. Bowman has a lovely garden, hasn't he, Aunt Mary?
Yes, indeed.
Isn't that something funny?
Oh, yes. Seeing David's garden reminds me of the little rivalry he and Lefty have over their delphinium. They're both pretty cute.
Are they going to be competitors in the flower show?
Well, we're trying to persuade Lefty to enter, but I don't know if we'll succeed.
Well, Lefty's quite a gardener.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's almost time for Dell to be coming along.
I wish you didn't have to go, Aunt Mary.
Oh, yes, so do I. My, it's a lovely day, isn't it?
Ah, yeah. The kind of day that makes you want to go places you've never been before.
I know what you mean. I gave in to a little wanderlust feeling this morning. Now I feel guilty wondering how my family got along without me. They'll probably be fainting with hunger by the time I get home.
Oh, I wouldn't worry. Maybe you ought to go on strike once a week and let somebody else do the cooking.
Oh, I don't mind, really. In fact, I enjoy it. Besides, you know, Peggy always helps out.
Oh, good for her.
But I think she ought to have a little time to herself. Have some fun. She went to church with Jane Plummer this morning, looking pretty as a picture.
Well, she always does to me.
Yes. Randy teases her. He calls her Miss Glamour Puss of 1946.
Randy. He's more like a brother to her than a cousin.
Oh, yes, always has been. They used to scrap like brother and sister, too, when they were youngsters.
Yeah, I'll bet they did. And Peggy probably held her own, too.
She did. When she makes up her mind about something, she doesn't give in any too easily, you know.
Yes, I do know. I guess she probably told you about us, didn't she, Aunt Mary?
Yes, Bill. We had a long talk. It was the night after you'd been there for dinner.
Yeah, I thought she'd want to talk it over with you.
She told me the whole story. I think you know how I feel about it, Bill.
And I appreciate it, too, Aunt Mary. You've been absolutely fair. Well, so is Peggy, for that matter.
She's tried to be fair, Bill. I think she's done what seemed right to her.
Well, I couldn't ask for more than that.
No?
Well, ever since I was able to make it clear to her why I'd behaved the way I did while Kit was away in California, she's been wonderfully kind and sympathetic. It helped a lot, too.
I'm sure it did.
Of course, when Kit finally agreed to the divorce, I guess I made an awful mistake.
How do you mean, Bill?
Well, I couldn't help hoping somehow that Peggy and I might get back to where we were before Kit and I were married. But I realized the other night how foolish I'd been to think it would work out.
Not foolish exactly, Bill. Perhaps unduly hopeful.
Yeah. A guy gets to kidding himself, convincing himself that what he wants to happen is going to happen. That's where I made my big mistake. I should have known I couldn't expect Peggy to consider making a life with me as long as I hoped to get custody of my kid. Not when Kit's his mother.
It would be very difficult. It's only natural that Peggy can't forget how much unhappiness she went through because of Kit.
Sure, I realize that.
As she explained it to me, Peggy's afraid she couldn't be fair to your child, knowing he's Kit's child, too.
I understand how she feels. But on the other hand, you get my angle of it, too, don't you, Aunt Mary?
I believe I do, Bill.
He's my son. I can't just forget about him, walk off and leave him. Not when I know how Ben Calvert would bring him up.
I'm afraid that Ben would bring your child up to believe the way he does.
And that's not the way I want it.
Peggy understands that, Bill. And she respects you for it.
Yeah. Yeah, even if it makes all the difference in the world to us personally. But the only thing I can see myself clear to do is to try to get custody of him. I wouldn't feel right if I didn't.
No. No, you wouldn't.
It's put me in a terrible spot, though, Aunt Mary. Now that I know Peggy does love me, well, knowing that if it weren't for the baby, for my son, everything would be so different. But I had to tell Peggy. It would have been wrong not to tell her I want the baby.
Yes, Bill, you had to be honest with her. Oh, here's Dell.
All ready, Mary?
Yes, I am. Bill, you remember Dell Shipley.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, why don't you walk out and say hello?
Oh, okay.
Hope I didn't hold you up, Mary. Lily and I got to talking.
You're right on the dot. Bill, you remember Bill Meade?
Bill? Why, yes, I sure do. Well, how are you, Bill?
Fine, thanks. You're down from Chicago for the weekend, huh, Miss Shipley?
Yeah, having a fine time, too. But don't call me Mrs. Shipley, Bill. Everybody calls me Dell.
Oh, well, fine. That's a nice name.
I didn't recognize you at first. You were in GIs the last time I saw you.
Yeah, that's right, I was. Yeah, well, I've been in civilian clothes for some time now. Yeah, it took me quite a while to get used to them, though.
Oh, I don't wonder. I was packing Randy's things away, and my goodness, those uniforms are heavy. Especially the winter ones.
Yeah, well, they have to be. They're built to take a lot of wear and tear.
Say, look, if I've interrupted you two, well, I can come back later, Mary.
Oh, no. My goodness, I just thought.
Well, what's the matter? Forget something?
Yes, I did. Sarah wrapped up a piece of cake for Randy. You know, he's a great pet of hers. And I left it in David's kitchen.
Oh, let me go back and get it for you.
Oh, no, Bill. You stay here and talk to Dale. I'll be just a minute. Why, it would break Sarah's heart if I didn't.
Aunt Mary, God bless her. Well, Bill, it's been a long time since I saw you.
Yeah, that's right. You haven't been down here much, have you?
No, I haven't.
Well, I guess they keep you pretty busy up in the big city. Are you still running that nightclub? The Golden Pheasant?
Golden Peacock.
Oh, yeah. Well, Peggy used to talk about it a lot. And I always thought I'd like to get up to Chicago and drop in sometime.
Why don't you? You're always welcome, Bill. Everything will be on the house, too.
Well, that's a dangerous offer. I might take you up on it one of these days.
Well, glad to have you. Say, by the way, I understand congratulations are in order.
Yeah, I guess so.
Too bad about your marriage busting up, but I understand you got a swell youngster.
Yeah, he's quite a guy.
See much of him?
No, I don't. Now, that's the tough part of it. You probably know that Kit, my ex-wife, got custody of the baby.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
So I don't get to see him very often. I kind of keep tabs on him, though. See, they've got this nurse taking care of him, and I run into her ever so often. She tells me I was getting along.
Aunt Mary says he's just about the best-looking child she's ever seen. And I know she wouldn't exaggerate.
Well, he looks awful good to me. But then I've always been afraid I was a little bit prejudiced. You know, the proud papa.
Not if Mary says so, too. She's a good judge, I'd say. Wish I could see him sometime, Bill.
Yeah, I wish you could, too.
Well, I know how it is, though. Say, you must have a picture of him. If you haven't, you're the first fond parent I ever met who didn't.
Oh, sure, I got a picture. It's just a snapshot his nurse took, but it's a good likeness.
Well, dig it out and let's give a look, huh?
Okay. You asked for it, you know. I got it here in my wallet. Yeah, there's a little monkey.
Oh, my Lord, he does look like...
He's a pretty handsome young man for his age. I might as well admit I think so. I guess if people didn't react as if they were impressed, I'd be kind of disappointed.
Well, I'm impressed, all right, Bill.
As Dell Shipley studied the snapshot, she felt as though she were looking into the face of Lisa Fenner. The child was so remarkably like her. Now Dell knew the link she'd seen connecting Lisa Fenner with Wakefield was no imaginary one. This child was Lisa's child, the baby son Lisa had relinquished to a woman she refused to name. Dell knew who that woman was now. It was Kit Meade. How could she help Aunt Mary to straighten out this tangle, Dell wondered, in time to save Aunt Mary's niece Peggy from marrying a man she didn't love, and restore Lisa's child to its rightful mother?